So today she actually, I mean, she's down in South Florida, but she actually has a day off that Vintage Nene, she's not totally taking off. There are some things she has said she needs to go into work to do. So that's how she is. That's who she is. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friend. God's blessings upon you. Let's praise the Lord together, my friend. We have all awakened in God's shelter. Now we've come to praise His name together. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, my friend, sing Hosanna, Hosanna, hallelujah, hallelujah, in the sanctuary of our Lord's protection, and the stronghold of our Lord's defense. With His love, our spirits are illumined as we glorify His name and hearts are blessed. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, my friend, my friend. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, my friend, my friend. Good morning, good I know I said it already, but every time we finish that song, I always feel like I need to say good morning again. So good morning, everyone. It's so good that you could join us. And do you know this lovely young lady up in the upper left-hand corner of our screen? No, I don't. You don't? Who is this young lady in blue, blue shirt? We just want to say good morning to you. We don't know if you've joined us before, but we're so glad you're here. How you doing? That's someone on our Zoom stream. We're too far away from our screen to be able to read your name, or we'd call you out and put you on blast. But we won't do that. Okay. I don't know. Do you want to just say hello and who you are? I'll take that as a no. She unmuted herself.
I'm Rebecca Roberts, and I'm new.
Hello, Rebecca. How you doing? We're glad you're here. We are.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
We hope that we haven't embarrassed you, and we hope that you'll come back and join us.
You haven't embarrassed me. It takes a lot to do that. So it's all right.
Good. Okay. We're going to start out with a prayer for detachment. Because I think, frankly, because today again, we are continuing with the proofs of Baha'u'llah's mission. And today's chapter, which is chapter 1, we covered the life and times of Baha'u'llah, life and teachings, of Baha'u'llah over the last couple of weeks. And today we look at the independent investigation of truth, which is one of the basic precepts of the Baha'i faith and something that is very much emphasized in the writings of Baha'u'llah. But in order to investigate truth independently, it also requires detachment. So let's have a prayer for detachment. Suffer me, O God, to draw nigh unto thee, and to abide within the precincts of thy court. For remoteness from thee hath well nigh consumed me. Cause me to rest under the shadow of the wings of thy grace, for the flame of my separation from thee hath melted my heart within me. Draw me nearer unto the river that is life indeed, for my soul burneth with thirst in its ceaseless search after thee. My sighs, O my God, proclaim the bitterness of mine anguish, and the tears I shed attest my love for thee. I beseech thee by the praise wherewith thou praisest thyself and the glory wherewith thou glorifiest thine own essence, to grant that we may be numbered among them that have recognized thee and acknowledged thy sovereignty in thy days. Help us then to quaff, O my God, from the fingers of mercy, the living waters of thy loving kindness, that we may utterly forget all else except thee, and be occupied only with thyself. Powerful art thou to do what thou wouldest. No God is there beside thee, the mighty, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. Glorified be thy name, O thou who art the King of all kings. And this is a prayer by Baha'u'llah. So Daryl, as we pointed out today, we're going to be looking at the independent investigation of truth. And I had a question to ask you, and I'm having a senior moment here, but so the question is gone. But in your, I remember now what it is. In your initial discovery of the faith and studying of the faith, how big would you say independent investigation of truth played into, your, just again, your studying faith?
Given that I had come from a Christian background, the independent investigation of the truth was a key starting point for me, because in the Christian faith, you have clergy and you have other organizations within churches that are not so independent. And what you find if you belong to a church is that you sometimes just go along to get along, even though you might be learning things that you don't necessarily have answers for. You have questions that you don't necessarily have answers for.
Yeah.
And if the minister can't answer them, and if someone else can't answer them, then where do you go? And the thing that I found most appealing about the Baha'i faith was just the fact that there were so many resources, and they were all available to me. And because initially I got asked questions about, well, isn't this a cult? Well, if it's a cult, it's the most backwards cult on the planet, because cults tend to deprive you of things to get you to go along with them and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the Baha'i faith was just the opposite. It's like, here's everything that you ever wanted to know, go for it.
You have questions.
So you have questions. Yeah. Here's all the answers. Go for it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was independent, and that I've found so many resources really was appealing to me about the faith.
Huh.
So if had it not been that way, I might have gone in a different direction. I might have chose some other
Yeah.
faith to investigate.
I'm just a little distracted because whenever I see a very short name on screen, which I can't read, I think is Nini. I believe it is. So good morning, Nini. I know Daryl already said it, but I'm saying it. Good morning, Nini. Okay.
So independent investigation of truth. It's very important.
Yeah, and if you notice, the first passage here is coming from Baha'u'llah. It's from this small, short book of writings that Baha'is know. It's called The Hidden Words, or The Hidden Word. And it actually starts out, independent investigation of the truth. This first passage is about justice.
Right.
So Daryl, if you want to start.
The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me, and neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. But by its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behooveth thee to be. Verily, justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Set it then before thine eyes. Ye observe how the world is divided against itself, how many a land is red with blood, and its very dust is caked with human gore. The fires of conflict have blazed so high that never in early times, not in the Middle Ages, not in recent centuries, hath there ever been such a hideous war, a war that is even as millstones taking for grain the skulls of men. Nay, even worse, for flourishing countries have been reduced to rubble. Cities have been leveled with the ground, and many a once prosperous village hath been turned into ruin. Fathers have lost their sons, and sons their fathers. Mothers have wept away their hearts over dead children. Children have been orphaned, women left to wander, vagrants without a home. From every aspect, humankind hath sunken low. Loud are the piercing cries of fatherless children. Loud the mothers' anguished voices reaching to the skies. And the breeding ground of all these tragedies is prejudice. Prejudice of race and nation, of religion and political opinion. And the root cause of prejudice is blind imitation of the past, imitation in religion, in racial attitudes, in national bias, in politics. So long as this aping of the past persisteth, just so long will the foundations of the social order be blown to the four winds. Just so long will humanity be continually exposed to direst peril.
Now, you know I'm going to stop you there.
I know.
I find it interesting that first we start out, again, this passage from Baha'u'llah talking about justice. I mean, that's one of the, for me, and I'm speaking personally now, but one of the most, one of the things that grabbed me when I first started investigating the faith was this passage.
Right.
The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. And having lived in a time, and not that this time is terribly unique, but unique as far as the details are concerned, having lived, or when we're living in a time when we see so much injustice, to be able to find a spiritual writing, you know, the word of God that says this in no uncertain terms. Now, I know you can find something comparable in other previous dispensations,
That's
I'm
right.
sure. But there's something about this that resonated with me. And I noticed that the word justice is even capitalized. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. And it tells us to depend on ourselves. Turn not away therefrom. Don't turn away from justice if you desirest me. Neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. This is a manifestation of God revealing the word of God. Don't turn away from justice if you want me to confide in you. By its aid, by the aid of justice, you will see with your own eyes and not through the eyes of others.
Right.
And you will know of your own knowledge. You'll know for yourself when something is just or not, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. And he says that justice is a gift. Justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. And then Abdul Baha goes on and talks about, this was during, or was it the build up to World War I or during World War I?
Build up to World War I.
Okay. And he graphically, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
He graphically describes what's happening. And then he points out the reason for all of these things is
Prejudice.
Prejudice. So for the person who
The
thinks,
breeding ground of all these tragedies is prejudice.
yes. And then he lists them.
Of race and nation, of religion, of political opinion. And the root cause of prejudice is blind imitation of the past. Imitation in religion, in racial attitudes, in national bias, and in politics. So long as this aping of the past persisted, just so long will the foundations of the social order be blown to the four winds. Just so long will humanity be continually exposed to duress, peril.
Terrell, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I think I will.
What's that? The song?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, son of spirit. Oh, son of spirit. Oh, son of spirit. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Justice. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Justice. Turn not away that from me thou desirest me. Neglect it now that I may confide in thee. By its aid, thou shalt see with thy own eyes, and not through the eyes of another. O son of spirit. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Justice. Best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Justice. Thou shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder it in thine heart, how it behooveth thee to be. Verily justice is mine, give to thee and a sign of my loving kindness. So now you've heard it twice. You've heard it read and you've heard it in a song. So that speaks to the, at least as far as I'm concerned, speaks to the importance of it. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. And we read about how Abdul Baha points out that, as far as the wrong that we, wreak upon one another, it's based on prejudice. You want to continue, Gerald?
Sure. The first teaching of Baha'u'llah is the duty incumbent upon all to investigate reality. What does it mean to investigate reality? It means that man must forget all hearsay and examine truth himself, for he does not know whether statements he hears are in accordance with reality or not. Wherever he finds truth or reality, he must hold to it, forsaking, discarding all else. For outside of reality, there is naught but superstition and imagination.
Gotta stop you again.
For outside of reality, there is naught but superstition and imagination.
I'm gonna stop you, not to ask, not to explain, but to get people ready for the next passage. Because we're living in a time, it seems, where people, it says wherever he finds truth and reality, he must hold to it, forsaking, discarding all else. And some people seem to be creating their own reality.
Very often, true.
Yeah, which can be as convincing as actual reality. It can be very convincing. And yet the next passage kind of speaks to that.
Religion must conform to science and reason. Otherwise, it is superstition. I'm going to say that again. Religion must conform to science and reason. Otherwise, it is superstition. God has created man in order that he may perceive the verity of existence and endowed him with mind or reason to discover the truth. Therefore, scientific knowledge and religious belief must be conformable to the analysis of this divine faculty in man. I'm going to read that whole paragraph.
I wish you would. I wasn't going to say it because I told Earl I'm not going to be interrupting him so much, but it's hard not to.
But as you see, religion must conform to science and reason. Otherwise, it is superstition. We know there's so much superstition out there. God has created man in order that he may perceive the verity of existence and endowed him with mind or reason to discover the truth. God has endowed us with the ability to discover truth on our own.
Yes.
That means that we don't need anyone else's input necessarily other than the truth. Therefore, scientific knowledge and religious belief must be conformable to the analysis of this divine faculty in man. Note that he calls it a divine faculty.
Yeah.
You know, God has given us this ability.
You know, Daryl, I was thinking while you were reading that, again, I think we still have to be careful here, because someone who might be hanging on to their own prejudices as it relates to religion, I think they could pervert this into saying, well, all I got to do is, excuse me, just think for myself. Because, hey, I've got all the ability that I need just to figure everything out on my own. And I don't need, you know, other people's input. But that's not what this is saying. It says, yes, after investigation, or it has to be a part of a true seeking for actual truth, not just making up our own truths.
Right.
Yeah, while you were reading that, I was thinking when it came to science, I'm sure your car does this too, and I'm making for anyone out there who has a car, unless your car is very, very old, think about how you can now, and have been able to for years, lock and unlock your car without going to the car.
Right.
Take your key fob, push the button. For the unknowing eye, that could be magic. That could be magic. And yet, where did this development come from? It came from a scientific process, which is using, as you said, the analysis of the divine faculty in man. It's part of that process. And so, you know, again, I just feel like we need to, maybe this is unnecessary, but I just feel like it's important that we point that out, that, yeah, religion and science are both simply different approaches in a search for truth.
Right.
You know, it's not just making it up. But anyway, okay, I'll stop.
Okay. Furthermore, know ye that God has created in man the power of reason, whereby man is enabled to investigate reality. God has not intended man to imitate blindly his fathers and ancestors. He has endowed him with mind, or the faculty of reasoning, by the exercise of which he is to investigate and discover the truth, and that which he finds real and true, he must accept. That which he finds real and true, he must accept. He must not be an imitator or blind follower of any soul. He must not rely implicitly upon the opinion of any man without investigation. Nay, each soul must seek intelligently and independently, arriving at a real conclusion and bound only by that reality. The greatest cause of bereavement and disheartening in the world of humanity is ignorance, based upon blind imitation. It is due to this that wars and battles prevail. From this cause, hatred and animosity arise continually among mankind. We can apply this to our everyday lives here in this country right now.
Yeah.
And if we can apply this to the pandemic currently,
Yes.
Because, you know.
Now, Daryl, I wasn't going to go there.
I wasn't going to go there.
I wasn't going to go there.
I want to repeat this.
Please.
He must not rely implicitly upon the opinion of any man without investigation. Nay, each soul must seek intelligently and independently, arriving at a real conclusion and bound only by that reality. The greatest cause of bereavement and disheartening in the world of humanity is ignorance, based upon blind imitation. Ignorance based upon blind imitation. I'm going to say it again. Ignorance based upon blind imitation. It is due to this that wars and battles prevail. From this cause, hatred and animosity arise continually among mankind.
This isn't saying don't ask questions. This is indeed saying question.
Question.
Yes, ask questions, but get answers with an open mind from reputable sources. You know, that's not the word that's used.
That's right.
But it says, where is it? He must not rely implicitly upon the opinion of any man without investigation. That means, yeah, investigate. Each soul must seek intelligently and independently. That intelligently is each soul must seek intelligently and independently, arriving at a real conclusion and bound only by that reality.
That's right.
You know, not just jump into conclusions. You know, yeah, you're going to get to a conclusion, but after seeking intelligently and independently. And since you brought it up, I'm going to piggyback on you, Daryl. We are in a war.
That's right.
We're in a war. I don't know that this kind of war is what Abdul Baha meant when he read this, but we're in a war. And he says, it is due to this that wars and battles prevail. All battles don't have people shooting guns at each other.
That's right.
You know, all battles don't have bombs. We're still in a war. People are still dying. And from this cause, hatred and animosity arise continually among mankind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, depend upon your own reason and judgment and adhere to the outcome of your own investigation. Otherwise, you will be utterly submerged in the sea of ignorance and deprived of the bounties of God.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you will be utterly submerged in the sea of ignorance and deprived of all the bounties of God.
Yes.
Let's do another song.
Want to do another song?
Yeah.
I don't want to do another. This next song is, if you've joined us before, it's called Choice Wine. We've done it many times. And right now, it's especially pertinent because it is about the revealed word of God through Baha'u'llah. And Baha'u'llah refers to this revelation, the revelation for our time, as choice wine. Bishara, Tarazah, Tazalia, Ishrika, Kalimati, Vedasie, Kalimati, Vedasie, Bishara, Tarazah, Tazalia, Ishrika, Kalimati, Vedasie, Kalimati, Vedasie. Glad tidings for the blessed, evidences and splendors, holy words of paradise, holy words of paradise. Gift of life through my Lord, hidden words now reveal, choice one now unsealed by my Lord, now unsealed by my Lord, now unsealed by my Lord, now unsealed by my Lord. In the writings of Baha'u'llah, it is written, the seal of the choice wine of his revelation hath in this day, and in his name the self-sufficing been broken. Its grace is being poured out upon men. Fill thy cup and drink in his name, the most holy, the all praise. Bishara, Taraza, Tajania, Ishrika, Kalimati, Verosine, Kalimati, Verosine, words revealed by my Lord, word of God through my Lord, hidden words now revealed, choice one now concealed by my Lord, 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 now concealed by my Lord. Oh,
Thank you, Tony.
thank you.
continued, we must not be content with simply following a certain course because we find our fathers pursued that course. It is the duty of everyone to investigate reality. An investigation of reality by another will not do for us. Amen. It is the duty of everyone to investigate reality. An investigation of a reality by another will not do for us. If all in the world were rich and one man poor, of what use are these riches to that man? If all the world be virtuous, excuse me, if all the world be virtuous and a man steeped in vice, what good results are forthcoming from him? If all the world be resplendent and a man blind, what are his benefits? If all the world be in plenty and a man hungry, what sustenance does he derive? Therefore, every man must be an investigator for himself. Ideas and beliefs left by his fathers and ancestors as a heritage will not suffice, for adherence to these are but imitations, and imitations have ever been a cause of disappointment and misguidance. But investigators of reality, be investigators of reality, that you may attain the verity of truth and life.
Read that again, please.
Be investigators of reality, that you may attain the verity of truth and life.
Wow. I have nothing else to say.
Well, I think it's important that we understand that we have to investigate for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because the only truth that we will find, the only reality that we will find, will be as a result of that investigation.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions I really want to ask, but we don't have much time, so I won't ask them. But, again, investigation of reality, independent investigation. It's not always a feel-good trip.
No.
A lot of times we make discoveries that are as clear as can be, and yet they are not in conjunction with what we may have already believed or assumed. They're not in line with what we already believed or assumed. And the question is, if this truth is indeed clear as day, and let's assume it is, do I accept it? Or do I pretend that I don't know and go on living my life as I did? Just doing what I did. Because let's face it, there can be, let's face it, the consequences of not being connected with actual reality, for lack of a better word, after an independent process of investigation. The consequences of sticking to whatever we may have believed previously, sometimes it can carry some what seem to be benefits in the short term. And sometimes, because it's within our comfort zone is what I'm saying. We can feel comfortable with what we already may have believed, even after seeing, wait a minute, this rings true. This appears true. I investigate it. I cannot deny that this is true, but it's not what I thought was true. So now we have a choice to make. Do I move forward with what I now know to be true? Or do I stick with what I used to think was true, or what I used to believe, just because, okay, this is what I've always done? I don't have an answer to that, but.
Well, I think if you approach God's truth as a smorgasbord, meaning that you can pick and choose whatever you want and whatever you don't want, I would say that you are surely a candidate for spiritual indigestion somewhere down the line. So God's truth is not a smorgasbord. It's not that you can pick one from column A or one from column B.
I love that analogy.
It is not a smorgasbord. Truth is truth, and God's truth is absolute. So if you think that you're going to just pick this because it agrees with what you want to believe at this moment, or pick that because it agrees with what you want to believe at some other time, like I said, you are surely in line for some spiritual indigestion somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Because you can't just ignore the fact that it is true.
You know, and we're both on this Friday night call where people get together and discuss a variety of issues. But last Friday night, there was this term that was used by one of the people in the meeting, and it's a Zoom meeting. They called it spiritual predators.
Yeah.
And I now think of blind imitation as a spiritual predator as a result of that. You know, we can keep doing what we always thought was right, even when we know, wait a minute, there is a problem here. And yet it's what has been accepted by the people that I feel closest to. And yet it's not okay to continue in that line once we know what the truth is.
Right.
It is a little late, not late, but it's time that we go ahead and move forward and have prayers and anything else that anyone else would like to offer. I would like to point out, as we always do, that this is an effort